Peace, Black Power. Welcome to another edition of Baba TV, House of Consciousness. Here with the big brother, Sankofa. He has a very important message he wants to give to us today. Peace.
Peace, Black Power. Uhuru Sasa. Let me move away from this thing, man. Damn, Jane keeps attacking me. You know what I mean? All that knowledge trying to get at me. Yeah, Uhuru Sasa, meaning freedom now, as I always start all my interviews, lectures, or what have you off with, in the spirit of Uhuru Sasa, freedom now, Mau warrior spirit. And a lot of things going on, man. Today's a beautiful day out here in Harlem, kicking it with the brothers, House of Consciousness style. Baba TV, I want to thank you once again, first and foremost, for giving me yet another great opportunity to expound on subject matter that I feel critically relevant and important to convey to the people. I want to thank all the viewers out there who support Sanetta and Baba TV, because you know what? The information, okay, is not about us. The information, yeah, it is about us too, but it's about us collectively. It's about the people. So the study that we put in, because I put in extensive hours of study and many years of research and study. Why? To be able to gather this information, process this information, and then convey or disseminate the information to you, the viewers out there who support black outlets such as this, okay? Our own media outlets, okay? Social media is the new paradigm, okay? Everybody's watching it, everybody's on it, so we must be responsible in giving messages and information to the people to offset, to counter, and to undermine the decadence, the filth, the deception, okay? And the television shows that are used towards geared towards dumbing us down further and further and further, okay? So I'm going to use this opportunity once again to edify my people in a spirit of love and in a spirit of militancy, because that's how I give it up, okay? Militancy out of love for you because of the opposition that is against us all, okay? Now, today's August 15th. Yesterday was the release of the NWA movie, Straight Outta Compton. You didn't get a chance to see it, did you, Baba? You didn't see it yet, did you? You intend on seeing it? Did you see it yet? Straight Outta Compton? Okay, the movie. Now, I think I'm going to go see that tonight. I didn't see it yet, but I will dialogue a little bit about NWA, gangster rap music in general, and hip-hop culture, okay? NWA, hey, I can't front, you know what I mean? I'm a little old school-ish, not old, but old school-ish, 40, 41 years old, you know. Oh yeah, I'm gonna go into that too, definitely, Baba. First things first, okay? Every journey starts with a first step, okay? So let me step in this direction, talking about NWA. And the movie came out last night, and I heard it was a big turnout. You know, I think this weekend is going to show a lot of numbers as far as how many people are going to support and going to see that movie, the viewership or what have you. NWA is a very important part of hip-hop history, okay? The reason why I say that, because they changed the landscape of hip-hop, okay, in the time that they came out, which was first in 1987, they really came out, but they didn't really get blown or get known really until Eazy-E came out with Easy Does It, okay? NWA, where I'm from in Boston, you know what I'm saying, and a lot of other cities, NWA had a very powerful impact through the message, and not just the message, how they conveyed their art form, okay? Yeah, it was. I wouldn't call them militant, but in some ways they were. Songs like Fuck the Police, okay, which is one of my favorite tracks, and to tell you the truth, still is, okay, because I still share that sentiment, okay, that song detailed, okay? Now, NWA came out at a time, it was the height of the crack era, gangbanging, guns, crime, AIDS, Reaganomics was just rampant, okay, or right after Reagan. Bush was becoming just the president. George Bush Sr. was the president then, but you get the point. Still Reaganomics type of social engineering was still infested our communities, and we were affected by that, okay? NWA came out at a time where our people, okay? The crime, the decadence, the destruction of movements in the 60s, the 70s, okay? Which gave birth to organizations or gangs. They started off as organizations, then became gangs like the Peace Stones, the Bloods, the Crips, the Vice Lords, and all that. Okay? When if you ever watch the show Bastards of the Party, you see the brother Bone did a brilliant, excellent job on breaking down how gangs rose from the ashes of black nationalist and community-oriented types of paramilitary organizations that stood up to fight the onslaught of the police brutality, okay, and against racist militia-type white groups, okay, like the Spook Hunters and things like that in California. NWA coming straight out of California, out of Compton, California, okay, was very... in California, going back to California before I proceed with the point, is very, when you examine what was taking place at the time, especially in California, okay, we know that crack cocaine devastated black communities, devastated us, okay? Crack cocaine first hit the scene in California and Los Angeles. First person to ever get a kilo of crack, because we know coke was out, it was considered the rich man's high, and it wasn't as accessible in inner urban city areas, okay, like that. Crack cocaine was introduced to the American public by Sigmund Freud in the early 1900s as an antidote for heroin addiction, okay? Crack cocaine was a different kind of invention, okay, that was put on the inner city streets purposely, first and foremost to finance a war, a covert war that was taking place in Nicaragua between the Sandinistas and the Contras, okay? And the CIA, in order to fund this covert war, okay, put tons and tons of cooked up cocaine called crack, or some people used it back then, it was called freebase, but crack cocaine on the streets. The first person that received a kilo of crack cocaine was a person by the name of Freeway Ricky Ross, okay? Not Ricky Ross, in case you don't know, for those who may not know, the rapper from Philadelphia. No, Freeway. Not Rick and Freeway, the rapper from Philadelphia, and then Rick Ross, the rapper from Miami, Florida. These are two names that actually initially went with one person. His name was Freeway Rick Ross, and he was given the first kilo of crack cocaine in the early 1980s, okay? And what they did was use that as a testing ground, LA, and I'm going to tie it all into NWA, gangster rap, and how that destroyed our art form of hip-hop and hip-hop culture for what it was initially intended to be, okay? Now, crack cocaine, as I said, devastated inner city areas all across America, okay? And it was put on there purposely by the United States government, because they even apologized to the Black Caucus in the late 1990s, I believe it was. I don't know if you remember that, Baba, with Maxine Waters and all them, when the CIA said that they specifically targeted black communities with the infestation and the influx of crack cocaine in the early 1980s, okay? NWA coming from that city, because along with the crack, they also flooded the streets with machine guns and all kind of high-powered weapons that you never seen in the streets in the 1960s and the 1970s, where you did have gangs or crews or posses or whatever, and they were, or cliques, and they were fighting each other, but it was a switchblade or a chain with a lock at the end of it, okay, or a baseball bat or a smack jack. These are the type of weapons, or maybe even a revolver. But you didn't see AK-47 choppers, you didn't see Tech 9s, Uzis, and all kind of high artillery weapon like that until crack cocaine hit the streets. And simultaneously with that, okay, geared to our demise, the U.S. government also put all kind of high caliber semi-automatic weapons on the streets too, okay? NWA coming from California was born and hatched, okay, and rose up in the area that was the first place that was ever affected with crack cocaine infestation, okay? NWA is a product of that, coming from Compton, California, very notoriously rough inner city in California, and LA, by LA, okay? Now their message was very prolific, because it dealt with a lot of the disparities and the destruction and the decadence that you've seen plaguing our communities. But hip-hop always being an art form where we use poetry and beats and rhythm to convey a message to get you to bop your head to the music. Because notice, like other genres of music, hip-hop is different. Other genres of music has the ability to make people dance, whereas hip-hop itself has the capability to make the words themselves dance. Okay? That's why, according to studies and statistical research, hip-hop is now considered the most influential culture on the planet in world history. Not just on the planet contemporarily, but ever. Okay? Because hip-hop is not just rap. Rap is one of the elements of hip-hop. Hip-hop itself is a culture, from the way we dress, to the DJ, to the slang, okay, and what have you. Now, the reason why NWA was so critical, because they came at a time where crack cocaine had hit the streets. The gang banging, okay, because people clicking up to protect their profit and to protect the territories where they hustled their profits from, okay, rose up and sprouted up in every city. So it went from criminal elements and bands of criminals clicking together called cliques or posses, going into full-fledged gangs, okay, with high artillery weaponry, and murder skyrocketed in every inner city, okay. And simultaneously, along with that aspect in history, NWA, a lot of their music was the soundtrack for that. Am I saying NWA contributed directly to that? Not really. It's not what I'm saying. However, music is very influential. So for the white man to create the atmosphere, okay, and create a situation of destruction and decadence, cracks, semi-automatics, AIDS, Reaganomics, all that was the order of the day. And for that to be a reality, socially speaking, and then to have a music where it in some ways glorifies, okay, in a very prolific, articulate manner, okay, those realities, what it has to do is people like to try to adapt to their environment, okay. If we're in an environment that's dealing with violence, drugs, chaos, crime-ridden, okay, and it's rampant, what people do, okay, for self-defense mechanisms in their mind, you have to toughen up, okay, you know what I'm saying? Get strong or be gone, you know what I'm saying? And that was reality in our environments. Where I come from in Compton and any other major city, okay, this was a reality. So you had to be tough in order to deal with. Because where I'm from, if you're soft, you're lost, like KRS-One said. So you couldn't be soft. You had to be strong. So a lot of people took on that for their own survival necessity, okay, took on that hard facade, you know what I'm saying? And took on that mean demeanor because it was necessary to exist in the environments that has been created for us, okay? So the music, okay, a lot of people vibed with it and attracted to it, okay, because first of all, it was something new. Nobody really heard cursing on tracks, on rap tracks, the way they did with NWA. Nobody heard about blatant gang banging, talking about blowing people's heads off, okay? So that's why that phenomenon was so impactful and so attractive to the youth, because of the environment that was created for them, that they were a part of, that many of us were all entwined into, okay? That was like a soundtrack to that reality that we dealt with, okay? So we vibed to that. And in many cases, negative. I remember NWA was talking about Eazy-E's fucked up and got that 8-ball rolling, drinking 8 balls or not 8 balls, you know, of cocaine or nothing weight-wise. I'm talking about 8-ball, that's what they would call Old English 800, you know what I mean? People was drinking that off the hook. I know on my block in Boston, because he mentioned it, boom, people was drinking Old English 800 like crazy. The profit margin for Old English skyrocketed just because Eazy-E mentioned it, and they didn't even have any commercial radio spins on the radio. Their stuff was hardcore underground hip hop. Okay, and they were selling major units, okay, because like I said, the atmosphere and the environment that was created for us to exist in, okay, and that we had to take a strong facade to deal with, okay, and we bopped our heads to a type of music genre that painted a clear picture of the reality that we were dealing with in such an articulate manner, and made it seem appealing and attractive to be a gangster, since that reality was prevalent in the environments that we in. Being a gangster is a facade that we took on, okay, and the soundtrack to a lot of that was gangsterism music, and the gangster fathers of gangster rap is NWA. Now you got to look at the dynamics behind NWA, okay, because they was only talking about reality that we were dealing with. And then some people may say it was very negative, and I'm inclined to agree, but I don't just look at it as negativity. I look at it as hip-hop expression, but I also look at the machine behind it before I just call that negative. The machine, the agenda, and the whole purpose behind that genre of music being pushed. Even though these brothers were very talented, and I would be a hypocrite to sit here and say back in the day I wasn't bopping my head to NWA. When they came out, I wasn't running down to Toontown Records on Blue Hill Ave to get me a copy of it, because I went right in and started bopping my head to gangster, gangster, that's what they're yelling. It's not about a salary, it's all about reality. I was feeling all that. You know what I'm saying? Me coming up in the hip-hop generation anyway, being attracted to hip-hop messages and lyricism along with a hard beat. But now you had something that was talking about the reality, the cold, harsh realities of crime, pimping, drug using, drug dealing, and gang banging, which was very prevalent in our communities, and this is something that I was rocking with too. So I would be a hypocrite to say that I wasn't bopping with or vibe to, or even sometimes throwing a little Eazy-E song and bop my head to it, reminiscing on back in the day type stuff. Okay? However, when you consider the machine behind that and the agenda, it gets a lot deeper than just NWA. Okay, because NWA and NWA types and the mentality that we call NWA music, we said that's negative, but we got to analyze, okay, and surgically dissect, okay, the dynamics of why their message was what it was, why it was promoted to the masses the way that it did, and why it became so successful, okay, and why conscious rap, which existed during that time, kind of got faded out, and gangster rap kind of got ushered in. And then the business and political aspects and dynamics of record labels kind of hyping rappers up or souping them up to make music more geared towards materialism and negativity, because it'll sell more units, and it's your aspiration coming from being poor, young black from the inner city, going through everyday struggles and surviving and struggling, dealing with the hells and the chaos of which we deal with in our environment. You know what I'm saying? You're going to be more inclined to want that power, a sense of power. Okay, a sense of authority. I have money, I call shots, you know what I mean? I'm famous, so I got notoriety, you know what I mean? People are knowing me everywhere I go. I'm getting respect. Hell, people want to emulate and be like me. People are going to be attracted to that which they are already destitute of, which is wealth and power. Okay, so what they tried to do is set it up so we would attract to that kind and relish that lifestyle and be willing to do anything or sell your soul, so to speak, to be able to partake in that lifestyle and have the riches, the power, and everything that goes along with that. Okay, so they changed the dynamic of conscious rap or rap with a message, even when they was gangsta or gangsta-ish type rappers, Eric B. Rakim, you know what I'm saying, many rappers, EPMD, and you had a lot of different ill lyricists back then that talked about the reality of the streets, that talked about those different dynamics, but it was considered b-boy rap, not necessarily gangster rap, because they put it in perspective. There was always a conscious message or a hint to some kind of consciousness. It wasn't always over politically conscious or nothing like that, but there was always a hint to some kind of consciousness or moral to the rap, and it was telling stories. They put it in a story platform, opposed to when NWA came out. The dynamic was put in more brazen, gunplay, murderous, running trains on chicks, you know what I mean? Which were realities going on in our hood, and in the negative environment that we were already in. Because of that environment was created for us, we attracted to that kind of music genre. Okay, now I'm not sure if you're familiar with this, Baba, but there is and you can look this up online too, people. It was called the famous or the infamous record label executive meeting. Okay, and what this meeting consisted of was high level record execs. I'm talking about big head honchos in the music industries, big moguls, shot callers, and you know, people who basically dictate policy as far as in the record label, as far as record labels go. Now, it was supposed to have been a meeting between record label execs and also judges, high power, high profile judges, and other people who are investors, and the investment that they were investing in was the prison industry, okay, which is, I believe, is the second or third biggest economy is the second or third biggest money maker in this country. You know what I mean? The prison industrial complex. A lot goes into prisons. You know what I mean? Everything from using electricity, electric companies, they get business from a prison, because it's not just a jail. You get $35,000 a year or more probably now just to house you there. Okay, canteen companies, because when you go order stuff from canteen lists, they're making money. Telephone companies are making money because you gotta make a phone call. Locksmith companies are making money because you're gonna need locks and locksmiths, okay, to keep making and upgrading and maintaining these locks and these different things such as that. All kind of different investments go into just a prison. A prison isn't just a prison where they hold you. There's all kind of major industry that goes into that. Phone companies, all kind of things. So it's big when you look at Forbes, and you can see how high up they are, okay, as far as how much revenue it generates just from a prison. So a lot of these people wanted to make more investments into privatized industrial prison complexes, okay? And in doing so, when you create prisons and you invest money in building all these prisons, okay, for instance, they offered, I think, $30 million to Baltimore public school system some years back, and it was rejected or whatever for whatever reason. But then I think about 100 million or something like that was offered to put more money into the building up of more prison industrial complexes and law enforcement, and that was accepted. It goes to show you that more money is put into not advancing and educating you, but incarcerating you, because there is a lot more money and benefit that people who never intended you to be socially to have social equality, justice, and to be liberated in the first place would never invest in your advancement, but they will always invest in something that is geared towards your demise, your incarceration, or your elimination, so to speak, okay? So this investment, or these investors and these record label execs, along with major high-profile judges and stuff, came together and had a meeting, okay? Look it up. And what they determined, or what came out of this meeting, was the agreement that the music was going to be less, because it was versatile too. You had b-boy rap, you had conscious rap, but there was a versatility because it was a reflection of everything in the community. However, they wanted to make it more one-sided, geared towards being more just negative oriented, okay? Because they seen the power of hip-hop. When hip-hop in its embryonic stage, a lot of people thought this was a fad of music that wouldn't last, okay? It's a bunch of beat bopping and hip hopping, that's what they would call it, and a bunch of racket. But once the Jew record label execs started to see the power of hip hop and how across racial lines and nationally and internationally people were attracted to hip hop. They was attracted to this African American created culture, okay? And they wanted to be a part of it, and they imitated and emulated it to the fullest. So they said, wow, this has that kind of power and capability. We definitely have to capitalize on it. We definitely got to own and control it. And we definitely got to navigate it into the areas we find it best suitable and beneficial for us, socially, politically, and economically. And that's what they did in this meeting. With the outcome of that meeting basically was that, okay, the end-all be-all agreement and consensus that they came to in this meeting was that, okay, we're going to make sure that the record label execs, as far as the genre of rap music, deal more so with negative concepts and ideas and art form of this music genre. Why? Because it's going to have the capability, the ability to impact the youth who are very impressionable, okay, to follow in a pattern of an epidemic of self-destruction and negative thinking and negative behavior, which ultimately will land them either dead or in jail. Okay, now when you're in jail, okay, they're making a lot of money off of you. That's why the prison population has increased from the 70s, early 80s, skyrocketed. From the time of crack cocaine, automatic weapons being flooded into the inner city streets. The prison industrial complex has and their profits have skyrocketed since these things that was targeted towards so-called African Americans since then. So the music also, which was something that we created, which was a music talking, a genre of art form that we spoke about. Our music always reflected our condition. Jazz, blues, okay? When we were in slavery, we talked about music that dealt with talking about the condition that we were in at that time. You might call it the blues. Gospel music, okay? So we took hymns and we used our own soul and African rhythm, okay, and creativity, and turned it into gospel music, okay. Now, when the heroin and prostitution and drug epidemic, okay, was rampant in our streets, okay, the music reflected that. However, we also talked about it because this is like right after the era of the Panthers and political activism and nationalist movements and the civil rights had taken place. And what spawned out of that was the generation that came next in the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s, and the music that they talked about was reflective of the sociological conditions that they were living and dealing in at that time. Okay, so the music always had a positive note to it because they was just the generation after the Panthers, the Mau Mau's, okay, the Black Liberation Army, Angela Davis, Huey Newton, okay, George Jackson, Jonathan Jackson. So the music was talking about the reality of crime that was in the streets, but it also talked about consciousness because they seen the balance and they seen what it was and how this oppression was real, and they always gave that understanding in the music. However, as the generations proceeded, the crack cocaine hit the streets,